Good morning. I'm Greg Longini of the Chicago Transit Authority's Board Office of the Secretary. On August 3rd of this year, the Office of the Secretary issued a notice of change format of Chicago Transit Board Committee meetings scheduled for August 10th of this year. There is currently in effect a statewide disaster declaration as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been renewed from month to month. Office of the Secretary pandemic. Pursuant to Section 7E of the Open Meetings Act, virtual public meetings are permitted while the disaster proclamation remains in effect. Because the governor's disaster proclamation remains in effect in the state of Illinois, the meetings on August 10th, 2022 are being held electronically or virtually for members of the public. We are now ready to begin the meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Chairman Silva.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the August 10, 2022 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, Director Jakes.
Present.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Lee.
Present.
Director Ortiz.
Here.
Director Barkley.
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum with all 6 members of the committee present, sir.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of July 13, 2022. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Directors Ortiz and Miller. Director Jakes. The vote in a minute. Yes. Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Barkley.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Abstain.
The motion passes with 5 yes votes and 1 abstention.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Michelle Fine.
Great. Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today I'll present the results for June revenues, expenses, and year-to-date numbers. First off is June revenues. We see a similar trend as what we've seen in prior months. Fare box and pass totals coming in slightly better than expected on an amended budget and original budget basis by about $1 million. The reduced fare subsidy continues to come in as expected, albeit lower than historic allocations. Non-fare box totals continue to do better than budgeted expectations on both an amended budget and original budget basis by about $900,000. So overall, for the month of June, our revenues are coming in a little under $2 million. $1.9 million better than expected on both an amended budget and original budget basis. It's also important to note that the variance to June of 2021 is better by almost $7 million. On the next page, we see year-to-date revenues. Again, following a similar format here where we see fare and pass totals coming in slightly better than amended budgeted expectations by about $700,000. Original budget is essentially flat, as is the reduced fare subsidy. Non-fare box totals coming in a little over $3 million to the positive. So overall, year-to-date for our revenues, we're seeing about $3.7 million of positive variance against the amended budget and about 3.1 against the original budget. And it's also important to note that the variance to 2021 year-to-date numbers were better by over $43 million. On the next couple of pages, we talk about our expenses. We continue to see positive variance on our labor line by almost $12 million. Materials is off by about $1.5 million, $1.4 million. Fuel and power continue to be strong performers for us. Injuries and damages and security services coming in either flat or slightly positive. And then other expenses continues to be positive by almost $3.5 million. That leaves us for the month of June positive by about $17 million on both an amended budget and original budget basis. When you factor in our June revenues, we're positive by almost $19 million on both accounts. With regard to our year-to-date numbers, we see, again, similar trajectory on each of the various lines. Dropping to the bottom line here, we see a positive variance to the amended budget by over $52 million and almost $85.5 million of positive variance against the original budget. Again, if you factor in our positive variance on revenues, we see Overall year-to-date numbers of about 56.1 of total positive variance against the amended budget, and about $88.7 million of positive variance against the original budget. With regard to our public funding, we continue to see positive results for sales tax and PTF. Sales tax is related to collections in April of 22. We see about $2.7 million of positive variance against the amended budget and about 2.8 against the original budget. PTF coming in positive by either $1.5 million or $2 million. Real estate transfer tax underperforming a little over $500,000 or about $600,000. And then PTF on rent and ICE funding continues to come in either flat or slightly positive to budget, which leaves us for the month, for our collections for this month, positive by about $4.8 million to the amended budget and about $4.3 million to the original budget. On the next page, you see year to date, again, dropping to the bottom line here. You see a positive variance to the amended budget year to date for the first half of the year, about $17.5 million to the positive and almost $45 million to the positive against the original budget. Obviously, we continue to see a very fast changing landscape in the larger economy. So we'll continue to keep an eye on, how that impacts our public funding. But, again, through the first half of the year on both public funding and our system generated revenues and expenses, we've seen positive variance, which has helped us draw down lower than estimated amounts of federal relief funding. And we'll see that on the next page here. For the month, we're only expecting to draw about $5.4 million of total relief funding. We have 3 remaining, grants that we can draw against: CRISA, ARP, and ARP discretionary. For this month, we're drawing against CRISA and ARP. We'll also, in the future, start drawing against ARP discretionary, and we will keep all 3 grants active as we continue to move forward in the future. To date, we've drawn down about 40% of our total allocation, which means that we have about $1.3 billion of federal relief funding still remaining. On the final section here regarding our commodities, we've executed a very strategic way of purchasing our fuel, which has allowed us to lock in all that we need to for 22, 23, and we'll continue to look for selective opportunities to buy volume in 24 and 5. But the prices that we've been able to lock in for 23, 4, and 5 are where we saw fuel prices peak and also where they have even dropped to today. Our current blended rate on those outer years is about $2.80, whereas even with the peak subsiding a little bit and spot prices going down, we're still seeing spot prices for the outer year fuel diesel purchases in the $3.50 range, whereas we've locked in at $2.80. So again, this strategic way of purchasing the fuel has benefited us. We'll look for selective opportunities in the future for fuel, power, and natural gas. That concludes my report for June, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
In the 24 and 25, what is the price that you have hedged that?
So the blended price is $2.80, and again, that's substantially below where we see spot prices currently, and particularly where we saw spot prices in a very elevated market as well. So again, this strategy of taking bites at the apple while prices dip and blending that in, through small tranche purchases has proved out to be very beneficial for us in both the early years and the latter years of the scope of what we're trying to purchase here from current pricing out to 2025.
So we pretty much cover, to 24, 25.
So right now, we're fully locked in for where we want to be for 22 and 23. And we've locked in about 35% of our estimated 2024 volume and about 25% of our estimated 2025 volume. We'll continue to look for selective opportunities to make additional purchases for those outer years, but we do have some time from a budgetary perspective to continue to look at where the market continues to evolve and make selective purchases for those outer years.
What is the impact of interest rates?
So the impact of interest rates on fuel pricing,
Yes.
there's not necessarily a direct correlation, but obviously as the larger economy and how interest rates and how the Federal Reserve reacts to the larger economy, that has an impact. And what you're seeing right now is a potential softening of the economy, and what you're seeing as a reciprocal of that because of what in the industry of fuel is considered demand destruction. Because there's less economic activity, currently or projected in the future, that has an impact on fuel pricing. And what you're seeing is fuel coming off of the very high levels that it was at a couple of months ago or even a couple of weeks ago. So as you see a softening in the economy, you generally see, because of the fact that there's not as many tractor trailers on the road and things like that, delivering goods and services, you see, fuel pricing here starting to soften up and drop a little bit.
Thank you.
Yes.
Chairman Barkley,
No questions.
Director Ortiz,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Lee.
No questions. Thanks for the update, Jeremy.
Thank you.
All right, Chairman, we may proceed to number 4.
Next order of business is a review of an ordinance amending Ordinance 021-119, approving the fiscal years 2022-2026 capital improvement. Michelle Cura.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Kern, Vice President of Budget and Capital Finance. I'm here today to present an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the 2022 to 2026 Capital Improvement Program, or CIP. The board has previously approved 2 amendments increasing the CIP to $3.625 billion. The amendment proposed today provides an additional $40 million of CTA bond funds for the Red Line Extension project to meet the federal local match requirements based on the revised RLE budget. In addition, the amendment also provides for funding for the RPM project to be advanced from future years of the CIP into 2022 due to the increased federal funding under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. There's no change to the funding for the project. It's only amending the years in which the funds are appropriated. The proposed amendment increases the CIP by $40 million, revising the fiscal year 2022 through 2026 CIP to an updated total of $3.665 billion. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Chairman Silva.
Yes, what is how does the inflation, do in this, in the future years?
Inflation could ultimately impact overall project costs, but in the project costs, we've included inflation escalation in there.
Thank you.
The other point that I would make, because I think I understand sort of what you're asking in a broader sense, the impact it'll have on our projects. Inflation is one impact that we can calculate for as part of the escalation costs that Michelle mentioned. But the other thing that we have to worry about is delay. Supply chain issues impacting the ability of contractors to get materials that ultimately are needed to do major construction projects, stuff like that, or even rolling stock projects, can and possibly will impact the timing of completion of projects. And obviously with delay comes cost. So, it is a very volatile situation right now for major construction projects because of all the other things that are happening, not just within the United States, but globally. And so managing that is really been a very, very daunting task for my as they continue to obviously work on major projects like RPM, but also plan for projects like RLE that'll be coming, online in the next several years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Barclay,
No questions.
Director Silva, Ortiz,
No questions.
Director Jakes,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Lee.
Questions?
There are no further questions on item number 4, Chairman Silva.
Our next order,
Chairman, we need to get this on the omnibus.
may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moving second, we may go to number 5 now, sir.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for the 95th Street Corridor Equitable Transit-Oriented Development Plan. Mike Collin.
Yes. Good morning, Directors. I'm Mike Connolly, your Chief Planning Officer. Staff are recommending that the board approve an ordinance which would authorize an intergovernmental agreement between CTA and the City of Chicago Department of Planning and Development, or DPD, to complete a planning study for an equitable transit-oriented development plan for the 95th Street corridor on the south side of Chicago. CTA applied for and was approved for a Federal Transit Administration grant of $800,000. The City of Chicago Department of Planning and Development has committed a local share of $200,000 to complete the grant funding for this project of $1 million. CTA was the recipient of the grant. DPD, as the city's land use agency, will serve as the lead agency and the manager for the project with strong CTA support. The study will examine a 2-mile corridor along 95th Street from Halsted on the west to Cottage Grove on the east, with CTA's 95th Street rail line station in the middle. This study project will build on the existing and future transportation investments in the corridor by developing a community-supported plan for equitable transit-oriented development. This approach will encourage development which will enable all, regardless of race or economic status, to experience the benefits of these transit hubs. The project will help to alleviate decades of disinvestment, increase transit access, and document a unified action plan for equitable transit-oriented development for this community. The planning work will help address vacancies in the project area and analyze barriers and opportunities to investment with the intent of fostering partnerships among community groups and economic development efforts. The project will improve the quality of life in the area and promote local wealth building by supporting increased property values and potential business opportunities. The existing conditions and market analysis prepared for this project will include a formal health and racial equity impact assessment. We're excited to bring an IGA for this project to you for approval. I would be glad to try to answer any questions that you may have.
I don't have a question.
Director Barclay.
I just have a comment. I support the agreement with the city. As I mentioned to staff during briefings, I'd like to see CTA explore more opportunities to support the city in its ETOD efforts. But I do have one question. Is the FTA grant for ETOD still available? And if so, how can we, as a transit agency, apply for additional funding?
This grant that you're referring to that funded this project was a one-time opportunity that FTA put out that required that it be connected to other large capital investment grant projects that the FTA is funding. I expect that they will come out with additional under the new federal act, and there is additional funding available. There isn't one open right now, but we'll be watching for it. And if any do open up, we'll certainly apply.
Thank you.
Director Ortiz.
I also agree with those comments. I think ETOD, or Equitable Transit-Oriented Development, is a critical component to the growth of our city. So I commend our work in that effort, and I definitely agree with just keeping our eyes open and proactively advocating for additional funding to advance this work. So thank you for that.
Director Ortiz and Barkley, I also think it's important to point out that we are working directly with the city around ETOD related to the red line extension on the stations that we'll be building there. So even separate apart from what we're pursuing at the federal level for projects and or investments we've already made, we are definitely incorporating that into new projects as we move forward. And to the extent that the federal government is offering funding, even if it's in connection with the infrastructure project itself in terms of eligible costs, we will be looking to see if there are opportunities for us to get money to support ETOD and other activities, similar to what we did with RPM when we started that project. So it is integrated into our overall strategy as we go forward. And to your point, yes, we will continue to look for more opportunities to incorporate that into the work that we do.
Thank you.
If I may, on the role of implementation, I think the Department of Housing has also been very proactive on this effort. So if there are any opportunities to collaborate, they may not have funding available, but they might have strategies in place to support ETOD. So to the extent that we can collaborate with them as well, I think they're really good and a really good partner at that.
Yeah, and I'm remiss in not mentioning Department of Housing, Department of Planning and Development. We do work with both of those departments and the commissioners for opportunities where all of us can coordinate on transit development throughout the city. And obviously, we are a strong supporter of the ETOD ordinance that is pending in City Council right now.
Yes, thank you.
Director Jakes, any questions?
No question, Greg.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Lee?
None at this time. Thank you.
Chairman, there are no further questions on this item.
May I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We may proceed to item number 6, sir.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Police for federal fiscal year 2021 Transit Security Grant Funds. Nancy Ellen.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Ellen Zussman. I'm the Chief Safety and Security Officer for CTA. This is an annual intergovernmental agreement between CTA and the Chicago Police Department to pass through anti-terrorism funds for 2 activities for the Chicago Police Department, approximately $4.5 million for transit operation packages, which is essentially bomb detection canines, anti-terrorism teams that are dedicated to mass transit, and bomb technicians, and then an additional $634,305 for transit system surge operations, which are dedicated teams for special events like Lollapalooza, specifically looking for anti-terrorism targets. This is an agreement that CTA and CPD enter into every year routinely, and it's basically a pass-through of federal funds through a discretionary grant program that is authorized by the Department of Homeland Security. Do you have any questions?
We have to increase this, or we are comfortable, okay, with the way it is?
The numbers are standard, so we're comfortable with the way they are.
Thank you.
I think it's important to point out that the amount that we get each year is determined by the federal government as part of the discretionary program. We compete with a significant number of other transit agencies for these funds on an annual basis. But what we apply for is definitely tied to our traditional approach to the eligible activities that we know these funds could be used for.
Thank you.
Director Barkley?
No questions. Thank you.
Director Ortiz?
No questions. Thank you for securing that funding.
Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Lee?
Just a quick comment that I'm super supportive of any ways that we can make our transit system more safe and more secure as a, a woman and disabled woman. It's really hard to safely feel comfortable sometimes. And I'm sure that I don't speak, I'm not alone out there. And so any more safety that we can provide for our riders it's I'm supportive of it. So thank you for what you're doing, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further questions, Chairman Silva, on this matter.
I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. We can go to the contracts now, sir. B1.
Our next order of business is a contract number B1, a change order for a boiler maintenance contract.
Any questions by any board members? No?
No questions.
No questions, Greg.
All right. No questions on B1, sir. We can go to B2.
Our next order of business is contract number B2, a truck hardware contract.
Questions from any board members?
No question.
No questions.
All right, we can go to B3, sir.
Our next order of business is contract number B3, a construction services contract.
Any questions, comments? And we can go to G.
Just one
Sorry, yes.
comment. Will the non-responsive firms in B3 be invited to participate in our small business program so that they'll be better prepared next go around?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is something that we're going to take a look at and see where we can strengthen some training or some outreach and education for the small business to be found responsive next time. We're also going to take a look at our requirements and make sure that they are friendly to the small business community.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions on B3? Then Chairman Silva, we can move to G1.
Our next order of business is contract number G1, a change order for a technology services contract. Any questions?
Questions, anybody?
Question.
No.
Any questions from any board members?
No question.
Go to J1, Chairman.
Final order of business is contract number J1, change order to consulting services contract.
Questions from any board members or comments?
No.
Appears not. So Chairman Silva, we can go to 7A.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 5 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. Chairman, we can go to 7B.
Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. I'll take a vote. Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Miller. Director Miller?
Yes.
Yes. Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes. Number 8.
Finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. I'll take the vote. Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Barkley,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes. So the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee adjourned. Good morning. We are now ready to begin the regularly scheduled Chicago Transit Board meeting for today. Chairman Barkley.
I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for August 10th, 2022. Secretary, please call the roll.
Yes, Director Jakes,
Here.
Director Miller,
Here.
Director Lee,
Present?
Director Ortiz,
Here.
Director Silva,
Here.
Chairman Barkley.
Here.
We have a quorum with all 6 members of the board present, sir.
Thank you. Our first order of business is public comment. Greg?
Yes, we do have public comment today. We have one written public comment from Xavier Ante, A-N-T-E, which I will distribute to the board members and staff after the board meeting. We now have 4 public comment speakers. We did have 5, but one is not available now. And so I want to remind all the public comment speakers to please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We would appreciate that. And our first public comment speaker is Pamela Tate. Ms. Tate, would you like to speak?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about your bus electrification plan. Like many other people, I'm deeply concerned by the transition plan because it includes purchasing 500 more diesel buses. There are alternatives to this plan, and given the urgency of the climate crisis, the emergency, this is just not an acceptable strategy. I understand that a major barrier to electrification is the retrofitting of the 7 old garages and the staff and resources you'll need to accomplish this. But upon further analysis, your garage plan could accommodate a lot more buses, and the major problem would come in about 2033 to 35, by which time you could have built the new garage that your plan envisions. If you would consider the alternative plan that our chapter of the Climate Reality Project has shared with you and the CTA staff, you could avoid the acquisition of these 500 buses altogether by overhauling 960 of the diesel buses that you got in 2006 to 8 instead of the 430 that is in the plan. This could allow you to cancel the plans to purchase new buses, and you could do the retrofits or overhauls for about $74,000 per bus. And you'd save the purchase price, which is about $500,000. Further, you would save $40,000 a year in operational costs for the electric buses. Our plan then would allow you to retire these overhauled buses before 2031 or 2032. So your fleet would be producing fewer greenhouse gas emissions throughout the decade of the 30s instead of operating almost all the way to 2040. And importantly, in the first 8 years, there's really very little difference in the number of electric buses between our plan and yours. The change comes in 2031 when the overhauled buses would be retired and would be replaced by electric. Certainly, CTA could be a leader here and ramp up your electric purchases immediately. Our plan also envisions doing more outdoor charging with charging stations at North Park and Forest Glen garages. I know that you are aware that charging stations can be built at relatively low cost when you compare them to a complete garage retrofit. Importantly, this would reduce the number of diesel buses operating by 2034 by 885 buses compared to your plan. This reduction would avoid 50,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions annually. That's the equivalent of taking 19,000 passenger cars off the road every year. So if you approve of CTA purchasing these buses over the next 3 years, they will be on the roads for 14 years. Think of the damage they will do in this period of time. Please do not move forward with these purchases. Please consider the alternatives I have suggested and that we have given you. We put a lot of thought into them, a lot of analysis, and I really believe they can work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tate. Our next speaker will be Scott Reed. Mr. Reed? Mr. Reed?
Press *6 to unmute.
Mr. Reed, can you hear me and can you speak?
I pressed star 6. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir. You can start.
Okay, great. Thank you, Pam, for outlining your plan, and thank you, board, for giving me a moment to talk to you. I'm Scott Reed. I'm a retired CPS teacher. I reside at the intersection of Sheridan Road and Bryn Mawr Avenue, and I'm here to talk about your plan to electrify our bus fleet. I use the buses a lot, and I'd like to happily verify you have an excellent system with outstanding drivers. My intersection is served by the 84, 92, 136, 151, and 147 buses. And when I clean my windowsills, you wouldn't believe what the cloth picks up. And I live on the 9th floor. When I look at the black residue on the cleaning rag, I'm reminded I'm breathing this stuff. We're all breathing this stuff, including you. But only you are in the unique position to help all of us no longer have to breathe this stuff. Your plan to electrify the fleet is admirable, but lacks the urgency our dilemma demands. You don't have to watch the news very much to know we are in the early stages of a full-blown climate catastrophe that will rapidly worsen as long as we continue burning fossil fuels. Well-crafted alternatives to your current plan have been offered just now that will significantly hasten the transition the Charge Forward initiative sets out to achieve. The proposal the Climate Reality Project has offered will also save a lot of money, and think how our collective health will improve if we get electrified faster. We're all becoming schooled in the raw truth of the global warming crisis, whether we want to be or not. The more you learn about the urgency for action, the more you realize the decisions to confront our predicament become moral decisions. The opportunity to make the best decision that will speed up getting cleaner air and doing our full share in slowing the catastrophe unfolding right in front of us is on your shoulders. Our plea, and the plea of every informed Chicagoan, is that you make the decision that most quickly, urgently gets soot-belching buses off the streets and replaces them with clean, quiet electric buses. Please have a serious look at the proposal that's been offered. Abandon the purchase of 500 new diesel buses, overhaul more buses and keep them going until 2031, and deploy more electric buses sooner. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Our next speaker will be Brian Urbaszewski. Brian?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Brian.
My name is Brian Urbaszewski. I'm the Director of Environmental Health Programs for Respiratory Health Association. And on behalf of my organization, thank you for the time to speak today. RHA has been working in Chicago to reduce lung disease and clean the air since 1906. And I'm here to urge you to support efforts to eliminate diesel buses and add electric buses faster than envisioned by CTA's Charging Forward report. Specifically, I urge you to examine the proposal put forth by the Climate Reality Project. We believe a faster transition can be accomplished by minimizing the purchase of new diesel buses in the short term and creatively using CTA's existing fleet assets to reduce emissions in the medium term to buy critical time and preserve service. CTA can refurbish, upgrade pollution controls, and cost-effectively extend the life of more diesel buses than it has proposed. This path would allow CTA to retrofit existing garages, expand garage capacity, and add a new garage to handle electric buses. We support the Climate Reality Project proposal because we believe it can dramatically reduce emissions from the CTA bus fleet and allow replacement of more diesel buses with zero-emission buses years earlier than the Charging Forward plan envisions, particularly from 2031 onwards. Since Lori Lightfoot originally called for electrifying the CTA fleet by 2030, the push for transit electrification has only gained momentum. PACE said it will meet CTA's bus electrification timeline. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act passed, and tens of billions of additional federal capital dollars were allocated for public transit, well above what was anticipated. CTA will benefit from additional formula funding, as well as in programs like CMAQ and the Low No Floor program, where it has gotten and used funding for electric buses and charging. For over a decade, my organization has been a strong and consistent supporter of CTA's efforts to capture these funds under these programs. CTA might also be able to tap into other completely new federal transportation programs, like the $6 billion plus carbon reduction program. Illinois' Climate and Equitable Jobs Act also passed in late 2021, and under the provisions of that law, ComEd proposed spending $100 million a year, overwhelmingly on transportation electrification, and CTA should be able to benefit from that funding too. The City of Chicago has also made a commitment to transition its own fleet to electric vehicles by 2035. And the soon-to-be enacted Inflation Reduction Act will provide billions to further accelerate the production of electric vehicles and components in the USA, lowering costs and increasing availability of vehicles like electric buses. As we stated in a 2020 RHA report, there are more people with lung diseases along busy CTA routes and near CTA bus garages. Reducing pollution from all sources is critical, including CTA vehicles. And while we appreciate CTA's efforts to build a zero-emission future, we are facing a worsening climate emergency where the detrimental health effects will fall on residents with the fewest resources to cope. We urge you to critically examine how CTA can move faster on electrification in light of this building momentum and the newly available and expanded sources of funding. Thank you again for the time.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, our final speaker of the day will be Karen Dater. Ms. Dater?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Ms.
Hello.
Dater.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hello, my name is Karen Dater, and I'm a psychotherapist, educator, and conservationist. Thank you for hearing my comments regarding the CTA electrification plan, Charging Forward, and your goal of 100% zero emissions fleet by 2040, a necessary and admirable goal. Yet, I'm surprised that the CTA transition plan includes bringing 500 new diesel buses onto our streets, a disturbing plan given the critical state of our climate crisis and the known toxicity of diesel bus emissions. Others have challenged CTA's thinking about retrofitting your garage as a significant barrier to electrification, so I won't go into that here. The Chicago Metro chapter of the Climate Reality Project proposes an alternative plan for the CTA to overhaul 960 2006-2008 diesel buses instead of the 430 currently proposed, and then to retire them by 2031-32. As Pam noted, overhauling one bus costs $74,000 approximately per bus versus paying $500,000 for a new diesel bus, resulting in significant savings. The additional $40,000 would be saved annually by operating electric buses over diesel. Replacing overhauled diesel buses with electric ones will also result in lower greenhouse gases starting in 2030 instead of having new toxic diesel buses on our streets into the 2040s. Using this plan reduces 885 diesel buses in operation by 2034 and decreases potentially 50,000 metric tons of CO2 emissions annually, as Pam noted, as each diesel bus emits the equivalent greenhouse gas of 30 cars. We encourage the CTA to make this change and to be on the forward edge of climate action. The 500 diesel buses currently proposed for purchase will adversely impact our communities and citizens for 14 years. They are smelly, create air pollution, and are tied to increased lung cancer risks, asthma, and other respiratory disorders. Why would you do this to the customers who rely upon you and who support your services when you have a less expensive and significantly healthier alternative? Please do not move forward with the purchase of 500 diesel buses and move to purchase only electric buses now. Chicagoans depending on you, not only to provide world-class transportation, but to do so in an environmentally safe and healthy manner. This is easily within your capabilities and reach. Thank you for listening to my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Dater. Chairman Barkley, that was the final presentation. Speaker.
Thank you to our public comment speakers for taking time to address the board this morning. I'm now open to other directors who wish to briefly acknowledge the speakers today.
I want to agree with the comments that were shared in terms of the chairman appreciating all of the data, the time, the effort to put together your comments. I recognize that includes a lot of data, a lot of time, a lot of research on your end. So we appreciate all of that information. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to also acknowledge, obviously, the work of this group in terms of the discussion that they're having around this issue. I think it's important to remember that this is a very complicated process. I am going to ask staff to give a more targeted response to the board. The questions that have been raised here and the concerns that are being identified, and make sure that the board understands the rationale for the decision that we're making and the actions that we are taking to address this issue. I think it's also important to remember that this document that we created that lays out the strategy for moving forward is obviously and always subject to updated and amendments if there are other things that change that allow me to accelerate the timeline that we're talking about here. It is not locked in stone. It doesn't mean it can never be modified. And who knows what opportunities and what will happen within the industry around this issue and those technologies over the course of the next 30 years. The final point that I want to make, and that I think is really important to keep in mind here, is that public transportation as an entity, whether we're running diesel buses or whether we're running electric buses, is still a major, major component benefiting the climate change concerns, especially compared to single occupancy vehicles. One of the quickest ways to address our climate challenges is to get more people on transit. And even with a diesel engine bus, it will produce less carbon emissions than the 40 to 50 cars that bus can carry. So I don't want us to lose sight in the debate over what we're doing here, that there is still an overall benefit to public transportation that should be acknowledged and should be understood by the community that we serve. These diesel buses are not as clean as electric buses, but they are cleaner than all the single occupancy vehicles that would be replaced if those buses weren't there. The final point that I want to make is that the buses that we are replacing are the worst pollutants in our system. Replacing them with newer buses, be it electric or diesel, is still an improvement to the air quality that we're all dealing with, regardless of the technology that's being used. I'm planning to have staff walk all of you through that and give a presentation to the board at our next board meeting to explain all these issues and a lot more that I'm probably not the best expert to even discuss. But I think it is important that the board and the public have a complete picture and understanding of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why at this point in time, we think it's the most rational approach to getting to a all-electric, zero-emissions bus fleet as quickly as possible.
President Carter, is there any funding source in the recent passed bill by Congress that would help us in this area, even to accelerate our timeline?
Yes, and I am aware of the other funding sources that they identified, but I think it's important to keep in mind that this isn't just a funding conversation, it's also a capacity conversation. There is very limited capacity for building electric buses, 40-foot buses in this country. Those buses still have to comply with Buy America and other requirements as with our regular diesel-equipped buses. And so even if I had the money, I can't necessarily buy the buses. And in the meantime, I continue to run old buses that have exceeded their useful life and need to be replaced. Keeping those buses on the street is a bigger detriment to the climate than putting new buses on the street, even if they are still diesel buses. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. The technology that we need to implement here and the infrastructure investments we need to make, unfortunately, are not going to happen overnight. And as much as I wish I could just wave my hand and make all this happen immediately, it's going to take time. In the meantime, there are things we can do, even if it's incremental, to improve the carbon footprint that we're currently operating on. And that's certainly what the plan is contemplating, while continuing to obviously move forward to the zero emission goal that we believe is important and the ultimate objective of the strategy and the plan that we put in place.
Thank you.
Director Jakes, would you like to make any comments?
No comments, Greg.
Director Miller?
I think he's saying something.
Director Miller?
No comment, just thanks to the speaker and thanks to the chairman and to President Carter for the information.
Thank you. Director Lee, would you like to say anything?
Just a quick comment, just to say thank you to the speakers as well. We really appreciate your time today. And we fully hear what you're saying, and we're all working towards the same thing, I feel like. So thank you.
Chairman Barkley, that seems to be concludes the public comment section today.
Thank you, Greg. Our next order of business is the president's report. President Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, throughout the year, I have been discussing with you our response to the unprecedented and multifaceted challenges facing CTA. There are many new and evolving challenges, including service impacts due to workforce shortages as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, customers' concerns about their safety on CTA, and bus and train tracker accuracy issues. Last month, I spoke to you about the challenges CTA is facing due to the bus and rail operator shortages that are similar to what other transit agencies across the country and the airline industry are facing today. Our bus and rail operators are working very hard, and we are proud of their daily efforts. But we need more of them to offer the level of service that we aspire to provide to our customers. It is a challenge that has a ripple effect. Fewer drivers mean less reliable service, which affects the accuracy of our digital tools, like our bus and rail trackers. The effects of these issues are, of course, inevitably felt by our riders. I want to be clear to everyone viewing our meeting today that we are working hard every day to address our challenges and improve the riding experience for all of our customers. And, as I've mentioned previously, we are already moving aggressively to remedy these issues. For example, last week, as a result of our multidimensional and aggressive recruitment campaign, we brought 80 new bus operators on board and have more applicants moving through the hiring process. Those 80 new bus operators are the biggest class that we have ever had, even pre-pandemic. We're also in regular discussions with our bus and rail unions about additional steps that we can take to address these same concerns. Across every CTA department, my direction has been simple. As we continue to welcome our customers back into the system, we are moving thoughtfully and aggressively to improve every facet of the CTA travel experience. This global perspective includes more reliable and consistent service and accuracy of our buses and trains through more hiring, schedule improvements, and technology upgrades. Additional efforts to improve safety and security through new protocols and additional resources, enhancement of our partnership with the Chicago Police Department, and the creation of new partnerships with other organizations that we believe can be helpful in this endeavor. And there is much more that I am planning to discuss publicly at greater length tomorrow. I know that my staff has briefed each one of you individually about some of the details of my plan, and I have given you a brochure that's going to discuss the plan in more detail that we'll be passing out tomorrow at my City Club speech. And for those of you who are on virtually, I'll make sure you get a copy of this as well today. I understand and certainly appreciate the urgency by which we need to address this problem. I believe the plan that I have put together and that I will be announcing publicly tomorrow will more than adequately address the concerns that are being raised and are definitely intended to improve CJ's customer experience weeks and months to come. It is of paramount importance to me that you and our customers know how we got here and what we are doing about it and where we are headed in the near future. It is my intention to keep you updated regularly as we implement this plan and to make sure that we're responding to any questions, comments, or concerns that you may have. We'll also be doing the same with the public as we continue to roll this out, and we'll be increasing our public engagement to ensure that we're getting customer feedback on what we're doing and how it is or is not impacting their customer experience. At this time, I want to thank you for your ongoing support and partnership as we move forward, and I am obviously available to discuss any of these and other issues with you at your convenience. Thank you.
Thank you, President Carter. Your team have done an impressive job with developing a comprehensive plan. to address some of the concerns raised by our ridership. Glad to see you getting the word out about the plan, including your upcoming presentation to the City Club tomorrow. As I mentioned during briefings, I encourage the team to make sure we're all driving the message through marketing efforts. So we appreciate what the team is doing. I'd like to open it up for other board members to comment in response to President Carter.
President Carter, will your manuscript be available tomorrow after your presentation?
Yes. The plan is to have it available at the end of the presentation, and it'll also be up publicly on our website and other locations.
Thank you.
I should also point out that I mentioned earlier that there's going to be a level of additional engagement with our customers. One of the things we're going to be doing is going out onto the system and making ourselves available to our customers to talk to them about the plan and having copies of this available with us at stations and other locations, bus turnarounds and other places, so that our customers can be educated about what we're doing, what we plan to do going forward. And by we, I mean the leadership of CTA, my senior management team and myself, will be hearing directly from our customers about their concerns and obviously responding to the best we can about what we're doing to address that.
Will this be done kind of like a listening tour? So will it be done on each side of town, or is it one location?
It's not as formal as a listening tour as much as it is going to various stations randomly and basically announcing that we're here, and as customers come into the station, giving them an opportunity to talk to us about our service.
How do we compare the efforts with other agencies in the U.S. and worldwide?
The challenge that we're facing is not unique to CTA. All of our peers are having similar problems around hiring, around retention, and it is impacting their service in a lot of ways, including, the challenges that we're facing. In fact, I think the transportation industry in general is having the same problem. And all you have to do is watch all the media attention around the airlines and the cancellations that they're having over the weekend to appreciate that this is a much global problem than just CTA. The real challenge of this, of course, is that hiring takes time. And it's not necessarily the time to hire someone, but it's the time to hire and train them and put them in a position to be able to operate safely a bus or a train. And so what you need to do is figure out what you can do in the interim while you're trying to get your workforce up to a level that allows you to meet the service standards that we set for ourselves and that our customers are expecting that we deliver. I know that there are various strategies that are being pursued by agencies all over the country. Ours is very unique to what we're experiencing here at CTA, which is a combination of hiring and a number of other issues that I mentioned before. But I don't know of any CEO who's sitting in my seat in other cities that isn't both having the same conversation and struggling to figure out the easiest and most effective solution to deal with all these problems. I will say this, we've been through 3 years of a pandemic. And during those 3 years, there have been no shortage of challenges that we as an agency have had to face and address in order to keep the system running. This is a new series of challenges that we're facing, but if nothing else, I think that we know and expect that we will solve these, just like we have solved all the other ones that we've had in the past. Our customers have been extremely patient with CTA during all the challenges that we faced over these several years of dealing with this problem. And I believe that with the right information, the appropriate level of transparency, and the commitment and progress that we're going to make on what we're doing now, that they will understand and appreciate and be supportive of what we need to get back to where we all want to be.
Thank you.
Just let me say thank you to President Carter for the update, the information, and your continuous leadership, you and your staff. Being a leader as you are, I think previously being honored with the awards of both the honoring the agency and the president, prove what a leader we have and what this agency is doing. Saw some snipping from the summer program at CTA University yesterday. Those kind of program where bright young people were excited about the opportunity that they had this summer is initiative that you and your staff continue to bring forth. So you're right. I know that we're going to come out of it. It's just going to take some time. So keep up the good work.
I agree with Director Miller's comments and others in terms of understanding how much your leadership is involved here, how much of the rest of the team as well is taking on a leadership to address the various changing needs of our society right now, of our customers and of the agency itself. So I recognize it's no small challenge, but we appreciate everyone's attention and continued commitment to advance and adjust as needed to meet the needs. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Our next order of business is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of July 13th, 2022. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
By Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Abstain.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes, sir, 1 abstention.
Our next order of business is executive session. My understanding, Brad, that we have an executive session today.
Yes, Chairman, we will have executive session in a closed meeting pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C, subparagraphs 5 and 8 of the State's Open Meetings Act.
Thanks, Brad. I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session for reasons stated by council.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, so the board is now in recess. Good morning. We're back to open session of the Chicago Transit Board meeting of August the 10th. Chairman Barkley.
I will now entertain a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was moved by Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes. Excuse me. We're back in open session, sir.
We will now address board item number 5A. Brad.
Chairman, in closed session, the board considered a recommendation that it designate for acquisition real property located at 401 West 111th Street in Chicago and authorize the CTA to negotiate the property's purchase, payment of relocation expenses, and execution of any required right of entry agreements. The property will be developed for use as a field office within the footprint of the CTA's Red Line Extension Project. It will allow the CTA to establish a presence in the community where the project will be developed. It will be used to engage with members of the community during the project's course. The proposed office location will be used for presentations, meetings, and other community purposes related to the Red Line Extension Project. It's for these reasons that it is recommended that the board authorize the CTA to acquire the subject property.
Thank you, Brad. May I now have a motion to approve an ordinance designating for acquisition property located at 401 West 111th Street, Chicago, Illinois, for a field office for the Red Line Extension Project and authorizing negotiations for purchase, payment of relocation expenses, and execution of right of entry agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved, sir, with 6 yes votes.
We will now address board item 5B.
Chairman, in closed session, the board considered a recommendation that it authorize the CTA to enter into a new intergovernmental agreement with the city of Chicago for additional police security services for the CTA. This agreement is a successor to a prior agreement and will increase funding for police security services to $30 million per year from the prior agreement's authorization of $10 million per year. The security provided under the proposed agreement is in addition to the police officers in the police department's public transportation section who are assigned to work on CTA. The security services under this proposed agreement will be provided by sworn officers, their days off under the police department's supervision, and the CTA will reimburse the police department for those services. For these reasons, it is recommended that the board authorize the CTA to enter into this new intergovernmental agreement with the city of Chicago for additional police security.
Thank you, Brad. May I now have a motion to approve an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Chicago through its Department of Police Voluntary Special Employment Program.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business is board matters. Are there any board matters today, Greg?
No, sir, there's not.
Our next order of business is a report from the Committee of Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee met earlier this morning. The committee approved the July minutes and reviewed the finance report. The committee reviewed 3 ordinances. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2021-119, approving the fiscal years 2022-2026 capital improvement program. An ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development, and an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Chicago through its Department of Police for federal fiscal year 2021. The committee also reviewed 5 contracts. The committee placed the 3 ordinance and the 5 contracts on the omnibus and recommended board approval of the omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman Berkeley.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
And Barclay?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir.
Our next order of business is the construction report. Bill Mooney.
Good morning, Chairman and Directors. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer with your monthly construction update. And we can move to our first project, Herb. We'll begin where we normally do, our Jefferson Park to O'Hare Signals Upgrade Project. As we've kind of passed another exciting milestone as we've completed the Rosemont West relay cutover, and we are now in the process of cutting over Rosemont East, which is the main end of this. This is closer to Rosemont Station, facilitates entrance and exits to our yard from the southern or eastern portion of kind of the alignment there on the O'Hare. And this is the last cutover of the project. So we are kind of at the light at the tunnel here, and we continue to close up previously identified punch list items and other discrepancies associated with the prior cutovers, and we're starting to wrap this job down. So we move to some photos. So here are some of the wayside signal installations. We've shown you kind of many of the other cutovers as there's a series of apparatuses on the wayside that ultimately, as we start these cutovers, get wired up to the new rooms. This is similar to what happened at O'Hare, where the new signal equipment is actually going in an existing room in the building. And so it's a little bit longer of a cutover because we have to demolish out the old equipment, and we can't do that till we start the process and then rebuild that room kind of in the same space. So next slide. Here's another example of a wayside apparatus. This is a wayside trip or stop machine. This helps us protect against some unwanted train movements. Next slide. And here's some of the circuits that are going on that are connecting back to that room that I'm talking about being built, the relay room and the wayside parts. This is a pretty big interlocking, and there's a bunch of temporary kind of circuits that facilitate around things. And so this is that temporary rack. Next slide. Our next project is our Irving Park Station escalator canopy replacement. The project is quickly coming to a close, and as we've started kind of the full escalator installation and the completion of the canopy at this point, I'll show you some photos of this work. Similar to what you saw on the Irving Park side of the station, the escalator that was being installed at Pulaski had a historic escalator that had become structurally deficient, and it was actually removed and replaced with some temporary stairs to continue to allow flow through that end of the station. We've now removed those temporary stairs and are installing the escalator. It's brought in multiple pieces overnight. Some of what you saw at Irving Park hung on a kind of a built-in gantry system that kind of allows them to adjust it and then bolt it into place fully. Next slide. Here's some of the nighttime work with the canopy. They're installing purlins, and you've seen similar things here, which are actually kind of substructural components that the new blue canopy gets attached on. They are about 80% or so complete with the canopy at this point, and coming into the finish line on that one. Next slide. This is our Kedville, Edmonds, and Sacramento tactical traction power upgrade. We've completed all work at Kedville at this point. As far as traction power works, there is some roofing that we'll be doing as the weather is breaking kind of here at the back portion of the summer. And all the work is really focused at Sacramento at this point in time. So we'll move to some of those photos. So here's the brand new breakers that are the last kind of components for Kedville. These are the breakers that facilitate the power going on and off from Commonwealth Edison to the building itself. Very similar to the breakers in your house, other than they're supersized because we use a lot more power. So next slide. Here is the first lineup going into Sacramento. So this is the rectifier. This is what converts the AC power to DC power. And I've shown you similar lineups going on at other substations, but this is the lineup going on at Sacramento. Next slide. My next projects are non-revenue rail vehicle maintenance facility. We've made some really great progress in the last month on the underground, so we can move kind of towards these photos. Most of this is around the foundation work. So we are doing helical piles in this project, which is kind of unique. We have not often done these. You'll hear Chris or I talk about caissons, which is where we drill a hole and we put in a metal cage and then pour concrete around it with a series of liners that ultimately become the foundational into the kind of the very deep foundational work. This is actually a little different, is we actually have a screw drill bit that goes down, and as the drill bit kind of comes back out, it inserts concrete into that hole, and in some cases they may use a cage liner as well. So this is actually to test testing of those helical piles. So they drilled a series of test piles, and then they had to test them for full loading, and they loaded up this apparatus to 560 tons. I'm sorry, 760 tons, and that was kind of the threshold for that test pile. So they built this big thing, and they stacked a bunch of weight on it. So it was kind of an interesting test on site. Next slide. And what you're seeing here is actually the pile that they had that apparatus set up on. So then post kind of that loading, once it cleared the test, they inspected it, and they actually did kind of ultrasonic testing on it to make sure there weren't any fatal failures kind of within the concrete itself before they blessed it. And the rig that does this work is very similar to what we see in caisson drilling. It's pile drill rig on the right on the screen there with the picture. Next slide. And then kind of the other big activity going on site is the underground storm retention system. So I've talked a little bit about this in a couple of previous slides. Is we're installing a series of 84-inch stormwater pipes buried into the foundation perimeter of the site that will allow us to retain 1.5 times the stormwater for the site. So one of the community benefits of this project is we're actually exceeding under the sustainability ordinance what we are required to hold on site for water retention. And so the community as a whole will benefit as we are holding more water on site in major rain events, and it will help with drainage around the community. So there are 2 east-west 84-inch lines running through the northern edge of the site, and then there's 2 north-south running lines that are 84 inches that run kind of along the eastern edge of the site. And these then tie into the overall drainage system on site, and then ultimately to the main sewer system, as it will slowly allow water to come out of the site after a storm. So, next slide. This is our Damon Berry Canal traction power upgrade. Most of the work right now has been focused really on Damon, as it has been first out of permitting. As we're starting to prep on Berry site, you'll see some photos around that, and we can move forward. Here's some more of the site exploration work at Damon. So as we've now moved towards the underground foundational work here, we've started exposing the foundations of the adjacent buildings, of the elevated structure, identifying any substructures that may be there that would interfere with the drilling of the caissons on the site. Next slide. And here they are prepping the Berry site. So similar to what you saw last month in the Damon site, they install construction site fencing with green mesh to keep the site clean and secure from the rest of the community as they start to get their activities mobilized on site. And my final project for today is to refresh and renew. So since we last met, we completed the work at Morgan in California on the Green Line. We've begun work at Harlem on the O'Hare branch, and we'll be moving into Fullerton Library in California over the next couple of weeks. And we've completed 88 of the 92 painting SBE painting stations. So those will be coming off kind of shortly as we finish up the last of those stations. It's been a really successful program. One of the contracts that the board approved today at FAB was actually for an SBE main contractor. This is a maintenance contractor. This would be a contractor that we would do SBE painting through going forward. We're looking at, we think it's been a successful program coupled with the overall refresh and renew, and we're going to look to try and continue some portion of that in the years to come. So let's go to some of the photos. My favorite before after lighting photos and the impact of lighting upgrades on these stations. So on your left is the before at California on the Green Line, and on the right is the after. As you'll note, kind of with these upgrades, it really impacts the footprint of the station and the overall corner that we occupy there, and the approaches, which is really important. Next slide. Here again is kind of a side view. I would just kind of call to the footprint again at ground level, right? So how big a difference it is just that outputting light from the edge of the station to the area directly below the station, and that public sidewalk and the walk up where you may not get as much from street lighting because of the footprint of the station. That upgraded lighting really does make a huge impact. Next slide. And nothing's like a good cleaning. So here's a good example of part of the program was we couple with Don Bonds' power wash crews, and they come in and do a really heavy detailed cleaning of the kind of before and after the work as we're there. They'll help facilitate our work as well as the end product of it. And I think it speaks for itself here, really, the impact of that really deep, heavy cleaning that goes on. Next slide. This is Morgan. So one of our newer stations built by and part of this program is really about deep inspection. So we identified through process here actually that we were getting some errant water infiltration off the canopy. So we actually upgraded the gutter system here, installed some new gutters and gutter runoff to better correct that work. And then we've now actually removed the ceiling and are in a process of replacing the ceiling that was damaged because of this errant water runoff. And so, it's really important to be able to get in here, get into the deep confines of the stations and dig up there and make sure we're identifying all the defects before they become really bad failures for us. So, next slide. And, and here's another kind of deep safety defect. So this is actually an interesting situation that exists on some of the highway stations where we interface with CDOT or IDOT roadways. There's sometimes a property line dispute where there is somewhat of a gap in there. And so here we've come in and we've created some additional security fencing to secure our right of way from the street above it. So that nobody has the opportunity to be able to throw anything down at the highway or the street below or the tracks below. So this is at UIC Halsted. Next slide. Again, some of the LED upgrades and kind of the impact on the station footprints there. And I'll pause at this point to take any questions.
Questions?
No questions.
No, thank you.
Any questions? No, it seems as there's none, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mooney. We will now call on Chris Bushell and Pablo Prieto to make their RPM and diversity presentations.
Thank you, Chairman Barkley. The RPM Phase 1 design build contract continues on budget and tight to schedule. There's been a lot of activity since my last report on the bypass. If we could go to the slides, Herb, that'd be great. So one of the big things on the bypass, you've seen us install various foundation systems, the drilled shaft or caissons. So that work is continuing on the bypass. This actually is not directly the bypass itself, but you can see to the right. That's kind of the bridge over. We call this the bridge under. This is the tracks associated, or the foundations rather, associated with the future modernized 4-track corridor, which goes from Belmont up towards Addison and passes underneath the bypass itself. Next. So kind of continuing the theme of the bridge under, again, you see the bridge over, the bypass on the left. On the right, you see the beginning of the new bridge that is really going to be the 4-track corridor. We're obviously building it on the west side of the tracks while we continue to provide service on the east. I think this is an interesting picture because you can kind of see on the existing train at the tail end of it how it sort of curls around, and then the curves just beyond that leading into the Addison station. One of the most important things this project seeks to do in this particular bridge is really to straighten those curves so that we can provide greater speed and reliability to the trains that will go under it. Obviously, at this point, red and purple trains. So I think a slide that really illustrates how that new infrastructure will work and what the alignment looks like, and a little bit too, the reason why we moved the Vautravers building, because as you all know and have seen from the videos, where that bridge is being installed right now, that's actually where the Vautravers building sat before we moved it. Next slide. So the segmental box girder in the Lawrence Bryn Mawr segment continues. You can kind of see in the background here behind me the inside of that box girder, but really the most important part obviously is the outside of the box girder where we're going to run trains. But that installation is continued, and actually we're working additional shifts to advance that further. If we can go to the next slide. For the reason that we want to install the traction power, and the signal system on top of that girder. So that work is beginning. You can see the installation of the track. We call, broadly speaking, the jewelry is getting installed on the bridge right now. So we can see the track installation. This is a preparation for pouring concrete, and the plinths or the little bases underneath the rail that will ultimately see the trains. So next slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of our community activities. At the start of RPM, we made a commitment to support hundreds of businesses in the project footprint. These are neighborhoods that include Uptown, Edgewater, Andersonville, and Lakeview East. We created an innovative Open for Business campaign in 2019. And initially, this featured a lot of fairly standard things that were, large banners at local community, signage at the rail stations, on the buses. We moved pretty aggressively into some more innovative things as COVID really hit. Promotional posts on CTA RPM media accounts. We created and are creating YouTube videos for individual businesses featuring their owners in an effort to really strengthen those businesses and to minimize impact associated not only with our project, but also with the pandemic as a whole. We kind of moved in and we distributed flyers, door hangers, and window decals promoting shop local. Again, trying to take this program to new levels that really supported the businesses and the communities around the project. So we are expanding this Enjoy Local program in various ways. We have included some of these Facebook Live promotional videos featuring both the Edgewater Mexican Cafe and African Safari Imports. Those have been very exciting. We've had some good hits on those websites. We're also launching a RPM Open for Business Ambassador program to personally engage with businesses in the project. And we have co-hosted, as noted in here, we've co-hosted the new Bryn Mawr Market Street Festival on July 22nd. We'll do a second one later this month. We had 9 local businesses with booths, children's areas with balloons, face painting, live music from the School of Rock, and more than 500 people attended the July 22nd event. So we're continuing to look for innovation as well as communicating clearly about the impacts of construction to both the community as well as to our ridership. But again, looking for innovative ways to support local businesses in these trying times. And after Juan Pablo, we have a couple of slides that show some of the graphics associated with those Enjoy Local campaigns. I think you'll enjoy the graphics. Go ahead, Juan Pablo. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. The CTA continues to meet with the contractor monthly to discuss DB and workforce outreach and compliance. We also continue to send out opportunities from the prime contractor to the DB community so they're aware of the trade packages that are still available on the project and how to submit their bids. We also send open career opportunities with the prime and their subs to our workforce partners, Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership and Hire 360, so they can refer interested and qualified candidates that meet the workforce goals on the project. In July, we hosted our next session of our Construction Talk series, which allows participants to go on a virtual tour of a building trade apprentice facility, hear from apprentice training staff, and from current apprentices. This session was with the Sheet Metal Workers Local 73 and their facility in Bellwood, Illinois. The video is uploaded to our CTA Doors Opening YouTube channel for anyone that may have missed the event or wants to watch it again. We had a great Q&A session with participants. As of July 31st, DBEs have been awarded over $228 million between the design and construction packages, and this accounts for 84 unique DBE firms, 32 of which are new to CTA. On the workforce side, 1,554 unique individuals have worked over 823,000 labor hours and earn over $47 million. That concludes my portion of the report. I'll turn it back over to Chris.
Thank you, Juan Pablo. Herb, if we could advance to some of the next slides. So to just give you an idea of the flavor of some of the graphics and other materials that we're putting out in the project, I wanted to put these 2 slides in here. This is hardly a regular Open for Business campaign where the Department of Transportation, the Chicago Department of Transportation, puts up signs saying local business is open here. We have not only reached out more aggressively to the communities and made them partners in this effort, but we have also used various methods, social media, Facebook Live, and other methods to reach people during the pandemic and after, as they start to come out and enjoy the neighborhoods around them. So we've tried to build on that with innovative ways to connect with them. And of course, as we connect with them on businesses, we also then can connect with information about impacts to service, impacts to the community where we happen to be digging our caissons or doing other types of work that may be intrusive. As people come to us for information on those local businesses, they then get also information that helps with their travel, helps with their plans in the neighborhood, when to expect noise or construction. Next slide, please. Again, here's a little bit of the enjoy local. So I just wanted to provide a little bit more information about our outreach program and how it fits in with our larger strategy of community engagement. So I thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Well, Chris, I understand that you are retiring and that this will be your last RPM report before the board. I want to congratulate you on your 15 years of dedicated service to the Chicago Transit Authority. Your leadership and experience have been instrumental in the success of major CTA construction projects through the years, not the least of which RPM project. Always presented to the board thorough and informative reports on the progress of RPM and of the project, develop creative partnerships across departments to engage the community and to promote opportunities for small businesses and DPs. You may recall a few months ago, I had the opportunity to see the impact of your leadership when I took the first ride over the red purple bypass, that cold, cold morning. Right. During the ride, I had an opportunity to meet with you as well as members of your team who exhibited great professionalism and pride in their work, which is reflective of your leadership and the example that you've demonstrated. Congratulations on your retirement and on a job well done. And thank you on behalf of all members of CTA. President Carter, would you like to have a few words?
Thank you, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, as you know, when an accomplished and long tenured employee leaves the authority, it's always bittersweet. With their departure, we lose the knowledge, abilities, and camaraderie of an experienced and dedicated worker and colleague. But we also have the chance to celebrate their accomplishments and wish them the best as they move on to the next chapter in their life and explore new opportunities that may lay ahead. On behalf of the CTA family of employees and the many CTA customers who benefited from his contributions to the CTA, it is my pleasure to congratulate Chris Bushell, your Chief of Red Purple Modernization Project, as he always introduced himself as he retires from our great agency. Before coming to work at CTA, Chris worked for the Chicago Public Schools in the City Department of Construction and Permits. His experience in government and capital construction made him an invaluable asset from the second he walked through our doors in July of 2007 to join us as Director of Power and Way Maintenance. In December of 2008, less than a year and a half later, he was named Vice President of Power and Way. In only 6 months, in April 2009, he was again promoted and began a 9-year term as the Chief Infrastructure Officer. Since April 2018, he has been the Chief of the Red Purple Modernization Project. Through his time with CTA, no matter what title he has held, Chris has played a critical role in our successful efforts to make the CTA system more modern, more reliable, and more accessible. Chris has been an excellent steward of many CTA capital investments and has established an exceptional track record and reputation in our industry. Among the many large and impressive signature projects he has worked on are the Red Line South Track and Station Reconstruction Project, the Loop Track and Signal Renewal Project, the Wilson Station Reconstruction Project, and the Dan Ryan 95th Station Improvement Project, which was the crown jewel that he gifted me when I first started as president of CTA. And that is just a small sampling of his many contributions to the CTA. In fact, wherever you live or work in the city, at any given time, there's a high likelihood that evidence of Chris and his team's efforts are only blocks away. Because Chris is truly among the elite at what he does, his absence will be felt. But he leaves in his wake a group of colleagues, friends, and associates who know that he is a special kind of leader. That is a trait necessary to shepherd the billions of dollars in CTA projects that Chris has overseen during his 15 years, which he has done with aplomb, and his expertise has instilled confidence in everyone who has worked with him. Having Chris at the helm of major projects like RPM, the 95th Dan Ryan project, and other capital investments across the system has always been reassuring to me as a CEO. I am thankful for his professionalism as well as his dedication to CTA. On a personal note, I have worked with Chris for a great part of the 15 years he has been at CTA, and certainly remember his first day here when he came to work in our agency. I can also tell you that for anyone who's worked at CTA, an outsider coming into our agency has always faced a certain level of headwinds before he is, quote, accepted by the organization, particularly in the infrastructure department, which consists of a lot of long-term career employees who are hardworking, get your hands dirty out there on the system, making things work. Chris assimilated into that group faster than anybody I had ever seen in my entire career. And the reason was he immediately showed his passion and his dedication for the work that we do here at CTA and his intention to be committed to it. In fact, there were more than a few occasions when Chris would show up at significant meetings with the president or other senior staff in which someone would gently remind him that there is an expectation that you wear a suit and tie when you attend our events. Something that Chris was never really able to accomplish because he was always in overalls, shirts, and work boots because he lived, breathed, and stayed out on the system. Chris, I know that you're going to be missed by all of your friends, colleagues, co-workers, and subordinates. I'm going to miss you personally. It has been an honor to work with you over these many years. And, I have told the story on more than one occasion that the whole reason the Red Purple Modernization Project exists is Chris coming to me many years ago and basically telling me if we don't make a multi-billion-dollar investment into the Red Line, it's going to fall down. And I looked at him like, where the heck am I going to get the money to pay for something like this? And it's a direct result of that conversation that there's a whole new federal program called the Core Capacity Program that funds projects specifically like RPM that started based on a conversation that Chris had with me 15 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, in which he presented me with the problem and said, boss, I'll build it, but you got to find a way to pay for it, which thankfully I was able to do. And thankfully we have the RPM project now as a result of that. Chris, I wish you Godspeed in your new endeavors. As I say to everyone who retires from CTA, you never really leave. You're always a part of our family. And we look forward to seeing you again in the future in whatever endeavor you may ultimately pursue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to leave it open to any other board members that might want to share.
I've been many of those years together, Chris, and we will miss you. Okay, I think a lot about you. Okay? I mean, right from the beginning. Congratulations.
Thank you, Alejandro.
Thank you.
Thank you for your long years of service. And I can very clearly see that your expertise will be missed, even in my shorter tenure than maybe others that have worked with you for a longer time. I can see your commitment and your expertise in all the work that you do. So wish you well.
Thank you, Director.
John and Chris, thank you so much for your service and your work. And you're going out with a bang. Yes, it was a beautiful presentation today. You go out with a bang. You're going to be missed. And we just thank you. Continue your great work and wherever the Lord leads your path.
Thank you, Director.
Congratulations, Chris. Enjoy your retirement.
Thank you, Director.
Well earned. 15 years is a long time. And, we'll see you on the trains. Thanks, Chris, and good luck.
Thank you, Director.
Mr. Chairman, before Chris speaks, there's one other thing I forgot to mention.
Okay.
There's one other thing about Chris that you may not know that also had a significant impact on CTA, and that is he's a real architect geek, and he loves coming up with innovative architectural designs and schemes and loves working on the creative side of construction. And, you know, the other mark that Chris left on CTA is the unbelievably beautiful designs that have been emblematic of not only 95th Street Terminal, but Wilson Station, the Belmont Terminal, or Belmont Station and others, where the genius of that work was his working with the architectural community to come up with really outside the box and creative thinking that then translated into the designs that we have here at CTA today. And so many of you know that I'm a big proponent of art on transit. And there's no better artistry that we have than the design of many of our facilities. And Chris is the person who not only exposed me to that, but got me as excited as he was about that aspect of his work that, to be quite honest with you, I probably wouldn't have paid too much attention to beforehand. So that's another legacy that he has left for us that not only impacts our entire system, but impacts me personally.
Thank you. Chris?
Well, all I can say, directors, chairman, president, is thank you for the opportunity. It was a pleasure and it was an honor. I would recommend CTA service to anybody. It is an agency with tremendous history, but more important than history, it is one of the linchpins to a sustainable and healthy city. Having a good transportation system is really the backbone to success for us as a city. So thank you again. It was an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you. Our next order of business is new business. Greg, is there any new business?
No, sir.
Since there's no further business to come before the board, I have a motion to adjourn the Chicago Transit Board meeting of August 10th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Ortiz, seconded by Director Miller. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, so we are adjourned, sir.